Loneliness may just be one of the riskiest things you ever decide to do with yourself in your life, and I'm going to tell you exactly why. Hey guys, my name is Reem, and I'm here to teach you how to take reign of your own life. So, this video is heavily inspired by a YouTuber called Student of Life. His name is Michael. He does make very, very good self-development content. I highly recommend that you check him out. I'm going to put his channel in the description of this video. So, in regards to loneliness, it is something we all go through, right? When we think about it briefly, we come to this earth alone, we spend a lot of time alone, and then we obviously die alone too. But what is important is not necessarily the act of loneliness itself, because we can be lonely and very miserable, or we can be lonely and very happy. It's the content behind what it is that you're doing to help you get further to achieving a sense of happiness and a sense of being content with life. Because ultimately, why would we be here to dwell in negative feelings, right? That's not what we want. But I have to be very honest with you guys. I grew up with the idea that I am only to flee from feelings of loneliness. I had to put up with a lot of change as a kid. I'm still quite a young individual, but I've lived in 3 different countries. I moved houses a lot. I moved schools. And ultimately, at some point in my life, I had foster siblings too. So that was another element of change. Like, I always had to be adapting. I could never get too used to anything. And when you're someone who's been dealt those kinds of cards, it's incredibly daunting and intimidating to be alone. I was raised as an only child, so loneliness is a very familiar friend of mine. And, you know, when I got to a certain age, I think I was 18, I moved away from my parents' house. I hated the idea of feeling trapped. I hated the idea of feeling like, I'm alone with my thoughts. I just want to get out. But it wasn't until I was forced to be back here that I learned all the lessons that I was running away from the entire time. So I want to make this clear. I in no way encourage people to go back to situations that have abused them in the past. I am not encouraging you to reach out to people who may have hurt you in the past, like be it an old friend, be it an ex. I'm not encouraging any of that, but I'm encouraging you to take a magnifying glass and physically point it at what you do during your time alone. Like, is it time alone well spent? Or is it time alone trying to distract yourself, trying to flee from the maladies that are in your head? Because that's what it was for me. I am very grateful that in one of the hardest moments of my life, I was by myself. Okay. I lived, I'm not going to drop the location because I have to be safe, but I used to live somewhere very remote, like currently about 4 hours away from where I live, and it's like a national park, right? Like it's beautiful. It's a touristy attraction. I used to live there, and I made that move by myself. I obviously, again, I was not happy with where I was, so what did I do? I changed my environment. In about 5 months of living there, my dad had died, and again, I was 4 or 5 hours away from my family, from my friends, from absolutely everything I knew, and I was faced and made to deal with the loss of a parent. Now, I've made a really, really long, not really, really long, but I've made a long video about grief that I will link to this video as well if you want to check that out. I really dive deep into the topic of grief, and that was in a time where I was actually grieving a loss. So it's really good. It really touches on a lot of things. But ultimately, what I'm trying to say is, had I not spent that grief by myself, I can't say that I would be the same person I am now. And I'm very, very grateful for the person I am now. I take into consideration so many things that have hurt me in the past. And again, the way that I've reframed them in my mind is out of this world. Losing my dad and being in such a, low, you can call it low frequency, but obviously a very, very traumatic and depressing and sad situation gave me the gift of discernment. I can't say again that I would be as smart as I am now, as empathetic as I am now. Stuff like that just makes you so much more aware of where you are at a specific point in life. And you can't know these things unless you give yourself the attention that the pain is asking you to give it. Losing my dad was horrific. It was terrible. It was so, so bad. And what my relationship with him was like doesn't really matter, but it wasn't a positive one, which in some ways makes the grief really worse. But again, I allowed myself to sit. I allowed myself to fully process everything like I was supposed to. And, being lonely and using that time wisely gives you the initiative of freedom, gives you the power to redirect your mind anywhere you want it to go. Because if you're lonely and unhappy, it's one thing. But if you're lonely and unhappy, knowing that there is a way around it, knowing that there is a way to fix it, you are trapping yourself. You are not allowing yourself to move forward. You are getting in your own way. Okay? That is the last thing I can recommend to anyone who wants true happiness from this life. You need to sit with yourself. You need to allow yourself to be vulnerable because, again, going back to my dad dying, if I had the most perfect support system ever, what my brain would start to say to myself is, I need these people because these people are the reason I was able to get through it like I did. And I still had people support me, but of course they weren't there. You know what I mean? Like they weren't physically there. So it really was like my own experience to feel, and grief especially is going to feel like that. Like even if people care, even if people do their due diligence and check on you and make sure that, you're doing as best as you can, it's your own individual experience. And that's how it is with life. Like when you are sat by yourself alone in a park, it is just you, it is just nature. And that is exactly how we want our alone time to feel. Like we want it to just feel like it's us and the world together, because the most dangerous thing is letting your alone time feel like it's loneliness. Like we have been made well aware that connection to just about anyone is instant now. Like you can literally go on, what do you call it, Omegle, and you'll find someone to talk to on there. You can go on Snapchat and message someone and they'll probably respond quick. Like, we're living in a world of instantaneous gratification, but stuff like overcoming the pain that is associated with loneliness is something that'll take time, because that is a habit that you have learned and been conditioned to ingrain within yourself. There is nothing wrong with you for taking time out to be alone. There is nothing wrong with you for being vulnerable, and for when you're placed in a dire situation that is difficult, to not feel guilty, being open and being honest with yourself. Like, loneliness is the biggest risk you'll take in your life because it will propel you to give up your old life. And that's hard because as humans, we relish in comfort, we relish in, things being familiar and familiarity. But that's the scary part. Like, nothing in this world will be familiar forever. Like, you need to keep the ball rolling, you need to keep on moving. But the thing about that is, with things constantly changing around you, the most consistent person to be in your life is you. Doesn't matter if you talk to a friend every single day, doesn't matter if you're married, have kids. You, the most consistent person in your life, you will be the person that will always be by your side and spend the most time with you. So you need to have that relationship with yourself. Be healthy, right? You need to treat yourself as if you are your own parent. Like you care about yourself. Because it's not that life gets easier. It's just a constant flow of things, and crap will always happen in life. Like you just never know when crap will happen. But again, when you have your own back, when you care about yourself enough to want to see you shine, want to see you do well, doesn't matter what'll stand in the way. Okay? Because you took that risk to utilize your alone time and make it something productive. And I do believe there's productivity in doing nothing as well. That is going to be a statement that will shock some people, because productivity is what so many of us like value our self-worth in, or root our self-worth in. But again, this goes back to letting yourself do nothing. When is the last time you just sat in stillness for 15 minutes? Do you want to know what would happen if you did that? If you set a timer on your phone for 15 minutes and just sat there? The things that you've been suppressing by, and again, this will apply differently for people, the things that you've been suppressing by, let's say, going on social media and scrolling, or taking drugs, or distracting yourself, whatever it is, those thoughts will come back, because it is not until we've dealt with our thoughts and given them time of day that they will keep coming back. It's like an ex that you want nothing to do with anymore. They, for some reason, want something to do with you, but you want to close that door and you want them to not keep walking in and interrupting whatever it is that you want to do. It's the same thing with your thoughts. You've got to learn how to take out the trash, and you won't learn how to take out the trash when you look at the bag and see that it's full. So that's a huge element of it too. There's what we do that's productive in our alone time, and then there's also the time of stillness that may be deemed unproductive in today's society, but it's productive to know what cache you need to clear and what gets to stay in your life. Your new life is going to cost you your old one. And when you prioritize your alone time in a way such that benefits you, benefits your surrounding relationships, benefits your environment, watch how abundant your life will become. All because you decided to take the risk of being alone. And remember, take reign of your own life.